This is my fully automatic mushroom fruiting chamber. Companies sell this exact setup for $400 to $500. I built this one for just over $200, and I'm going to show you exactly how. All the components I'm using today are going to be linked down below. The whole build starts out with a Martha tent. A Martha tent is basically a mini greenhouse. It's cheap, easy to assemble, and perfect for growing mushrooms. It can be assembled in just a few quick minutes. Posts, wire shelves, cover over the top, nothing too complicated. One of the reasons I like this tent in particular is the flexibility. You can adjust the shelves a little bit based on what you're growing. In my case, I took the second shelf and moved it to the very top. This has two key benefits. First, it will allow me to mount my inline fan at the top of the tent. And secondly, it frees up more space down below for some of my larger grows, like if I'm growing from a 5-gallon bucket or maybe a really large grow bag. As a quick heads up here, be sure to check your parts right when they arrive, because my first grow tent did unfortunately come missing one of its posts, and it ended up delaying my project by 4 days. Once the tent is up, I needed to add something underneath it. Naturally, the chamber gets very humid and it will cause condensation on the sides, which will eventually drip down onto the floor below. Obviously, that's bad for the floor, and I don't want to be out a security deposit, so my solution was to place this little $10 under sink mat under my tent. This did work, but I ultimately end up replacing it, and I'll explain why in just a bit. Now, this next step is where I see most people get it wrong. It's just a misunderstanding of airflow and physics. So I'm using an inline fan mounted at the top of my tent. First, I cut a little piece of foam and attach it to my fan as a pre-filter. This isn't about filtering out contaminants or anything. It's just more about preventing any debris moving through the air from getting into my fan and just causing damage over time. It's not perfect, but I think this little piece of foam will go a long way in extending the life of my fan. So I place my fan on the top shelf, I trace around the inside of the fan housing, and ultimately cut the hole out such that it's a little bit smaller than the opening of my fan. That's an important step. You see, the plastic is going to stretch around the fan as I pull it through this hole, and that's going to create a sort of makeshift seal. Now, here's the part I talked about a lot of people getting wrong. A lot of kits and companies I've seen selling these recommend placing the fan so that it blows air into the tent. But in a setup like this, that's not what you want to do. Instead, we want to turn our fan around and place it so it exhausts air from the tent. You see, it's going to create a slight negative pressure, which is going to pull air in from those openings in the bottom. This is actually going to give the tent better air exchange and superior carbon dioxide removal. Now, I just secure the fan in place using a few Velcro zip ties that I've stuck together. I like to use these things because they're cheap and easy to adjust later if I need to. Now, moving on to the next shelf down from where I placed my fan, I'm going to poke a small hole in the side of the tent for my humidifier hose. Once again, kind of stretch the plastic around the hose itself. The cool thing about these expandable hoses is I can actually kind of pinch them together and create a little makeshift seal there as well. Then I run the humidity sensor into the middle of the tent and route the wire out the bottom, again using Velcro straps to hold everything in place. Once the humidifier is filled up and plugged in, setting it up is pretty easy. First, in the off setting, I set the power level to 0. Then I'm going to switch it to the on setting and set the power level at 10. Then, switching it to auto mode, I can just choose my target humidity. Depending on what I'm growing, that number will probably be anywhere from 85 to 95%. At this point, my fruiting chamber will work almost perfectly. Almost. But I am missing something important, and this is another step that I've seen too many people overlook. You see, the inline fan doesn't have a timer. It's just gonna run non-stop. And let's face it, our mushrooms don't need that much fresh air. If left like this, the fan is gonna be fighting the humidifier constantly. It's wasted energy, it's wear and tear on the fan, and it's more time I need to spend refilling my humidifier. So the solution is a little something called a repeat cycle timer. This little device plugs into my outlet, and then I plug my fan directly into it. This will allow me to control how long my fan runs and how long it's off for. It's a pretty simple solution. For my setup, I set the fan to run for 30 seconds and then turn off for 5 minutes. That gives plenty of fresh air without absolutely nuking the humidity. Now back to the floor mat. Because my original floor mat solution was the exact same size as the tent, the walls of the tent actually hung slightly over the mat. So when condensation ran down the sides, it was dripping over the mat and onto the floor, which is obviously not good. I ended up removing that first mat and replacing it with a plastic dog crate tray that's slightly bigger than the tent, and now any condensation just drips onto the tray and not my floor. And that's the full setup. The chamber is on constantly, it holds humidity well, and it gives consistent fresh air. At the rate that it goes through water, I only have to fill the humidifier once every 10 or so days, so it's not a lot of work there either. For just over $200, this does all the things that the more expensive setups do, and in my opinion, it works even a bit better. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below, and happy growing.